Guys, hear me out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do bald people use shampoo or shower gel to wash their heads?
Oh.
Because
I think they use polish.
wow, oh my god, is
Like
that
that scene in Toy Story where Woody gets polished.
Hey guys, I'm Henry, one of your hosts of the Hear Me Out podcast.
I'm Dylan. I'm another one of your hosts.
I'm Ben.
Yeah, so Ben will be joining us on the Hear Me Out podcast indefinitely for the foreseeable future.
Yay!
Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah,
I am
Oh,
enough.
well.
we enjoyed his performance. We enjoyed his voice so much we had to get him to come back. And
Oh,
yeah,
well, I hope the listeners did as well.
the two listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you to
Thank you, two listeners. You make our day. Dylan, what are our topics for today?
So you say topics, but it's just one topic today, and that is the movie Whiplash.
Flash came out in 2014, and yeah, it's bizarre that it's been 9 years since it came out. Makes me feel very old.
And still a banger.
Uh,
Get it? Cause
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
get it? Cause you
Just
bang
timeless. Really.
bang the drums. No, yeah.
Ah.
Keep going. Yeah.
No, but you're right. It's a banger of a movie. I rewatched it recently, and yeah, it has aged really well. All of the parts of the movie that stood out before still stand out, even in comparison to lots of good movies I've watched since then.
I must
It was
say,
like
I think it's better than ever. You know, like especially
I agree.
I think we touched on this last time, and it was like in a world of CGI and
Yeah,
movies that are kind of for the sake of entertainment. It's such a fresh piece of entertainment that's different
yeah,
but different
Yeah.
in good ways. Yeah. Anyway.
for sure, for sure. No, I mean, like that was one of the first movies I watched that really got me into movies. And
Mm.
when I first watched it, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is incredible." And even after watching so many interesting movies after that, I still come back to it and I'm like, "Wow, this is incredible." And there are even things that you notice which you didn't notice before,
Yeah, that's what I love about
which
movies,
is
right? Like rewatching
yeah,
movies.
it's
Yeah.
always fantastic.
Yeah. Just discover
Yeah.
more.
But yeah, just for a bit of context, right? So it came out in 2014. It was written and directed by Damien Chazelle, and it was pretty much his breakout role as a director. Um, and a lot of people will know him for La La Land, which came out 2 years later in 2016.
That's how I knew
He
him. Yeah.
released it. Yeah, exactly. He directed a movie called First Man in 2018. It was about the moon landing, had Ryan Gosling. And then he released Babylon in 2022. And Babylon's funny because I think it was like a record-breaking bomb at the box office. Yet
Bomb is
I
bad,
think
right?
a lot of people, yeah, like it did really, really poorly at the box
Okay.
office. Yet I think a lot of people still are aware of it. Like you guys are aware of this movie, right?
I've heard of it. I've never
Yeah.
seen it.
I haven't seen it yet.
No one
I
told me it
Yeah.
did
was good
want to
enough
get
to
around
watch.
to it.
Well,
Oh,
exactly. But I mean, it has like Margot Robbie, Brad Pitt, um, some other big actors. But yeah.
it's a
So
solid
yeah,
cast. Yeah.
yeah, it's a great cast. But yeah, for whatever reason, it didn't do well. But anyways, yeah. So
Mm.
it was Damien Chazelle's breakout role, back in 2014, and the soundtrack, which is definitely one of the best parts of the movie, was by a guy called Justin Hurwitz, who has done the soundtrack for all 5 movies that Damien Chazelle has directed. So those 4 I mentioned, and then another one before that. It got nominated for 5 Academy Awards. Notably, it won, or rather, J.K. Simmons, who plays Terrence Fletcher, which we'll get into later, um, won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. I think for him, he was like he's like a super prolific actor. I read the other
Mm.
day he's doing like 200 movies, so he
What?
was well known before this.
200.
Yeah.
But I think
Crazy.
so.
Wow.
But he was well known before this, but this really put him into a sort of different category of actor, sort of an elite actor, you might say. And then for Miles Teller, it was huge as well. Really demonstrated his acting chops and helped him become more of a star as well. But yeah, here we are 9 years later, still one of my favorite movies and one of the best movies I've ever seen. And
Yeah.
it's good enough that we're talking about it today. So there you go.
And it was like cheap movie, like very, very cheap movie, you know? Like, of course,
Yeah.
still millions of dollars, but like, no,
Mm.
like, what was it, like 5 million? I think, no, 3
Yeah.
million. It was like 3 million, 3.3
Yeah.
million,
Mm.
the budget for
Yeah.
this movie, which is, if anything, a testament to how like good movies don't need big budgets. Like, it's a,
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And
Yeah.
it did nearly 50 million at the box office. So that's like a return on investment of like what, 15 times, I
Math
think,
student.
thereabouts. Oh, don't worry. I can't do any real maths, but I have heard of return on
Bit over.
investment.
Return on investment 49 divided by 3.3.
You
Dylan.
know, yeah, Dylan, that
Dylan.
is
Dylan.
Dylan.
Oh, 49 divided by 3.3.
Uh-huh.
Let me consult my great friend.
The calculator.
14.84848484.
Oh wow. I can't believe you got that so fast. There's so many decimal
I
places.
know.
Oh,
I can just do recurring fractions in my recurring
Yeah,
decimals
wow.
in my head.
that's beautiful.
Easy. Yeah.
And I
Uh
said 15, so I was close.
yeah,
Just
Yeah.
that's
saying.
very good. Very, very good, Ben.
Basic
You
math
should be the
guys.
math student here. Um yeah, so I mean, Ben talked about how much you like the movie. Dylan, you've got any
Mm,
like thoughts about the movie?
I mean, yeah, the reason it's still we're still talking about it today, it's got such like timeless themes, I think, which we are gonna get into
Definitely.
a bit later on. And the performances as well are stellar, which we're also gonna get into a bit later on. So I don't have anything bad to say about the
You
film.
don't have anything bad to say. Nothing. Absolutely
Nothing bad at
nothing.
all.
It's great when we have movies like that, don't we?
Yeah,
When there's
yeah.
no negative commentary. I'd love to hear if you had anything to pick apart. Ben,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you rewatched it most recently. You have anything like any actual criticism? How would you improve the movie?
Oh,
That's
actual
a big
criticism
question.
of
It is a
maybe
tough
my
question.
favorite movie ever.
Criticism,
Come
yeah. I don't
on,
know. I mean,
man. Come
no,
on,
seriously,
man.
it's okay. That's
Well,
Good
a
job.
I
so
mean,
for me. I think my main. Oh, sorry. If you were gonna say something, I was gonna.
no, please go on.
So this is not really criticism. It's more like maybe this was a route that they could have done. Maybe if they had more time or they wanted to do more or whatever. I think I would have liked a little bit more from the dad earlier in the film. Um,
Hmm.
I know that he comes like later on and is like, yeah, I don't
Mm.
want my son or whatever to be hurt or whatever. But it just
Yeah,
he feels I maybe of course right the core of this film is the two main characters, but it just like maybe a little bit
yeah.
more, maybe like one scene just to establish that the father is a role player in the main character's life. um
Hmm.
well, maybe he isn't, but maybe that's the point. But I think he is, all right,
Yeah,
by the end of the film. So
Mm.
it was a little bit jarring for.
yeah. I mean, I guess one small thing is there's the brief romance with Nicole.
Mm,
She's the
Mm.
girl who works at the cinema.
Yeah.
yeah.
And they go out twice, I think. So they go out once and get pizza, which is a little bit actually very awkward.
How do you think about the chemistry between the two of them?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna get at. I mean, to be honest, it's really awkward. Especially when you rewatch it and you already
Mm.
know that they're gonna be together. So you don't need to think about the fact that, you don't need to think about the destination. Rather, you just look at how they're communicating. It's really awkward. And
B-
that's
Yeah.
probably the point, because he's
mm.
not meant to be a really personable guy.
Mhm.
But it was a little bit weird watching it, like,
So
why are these two together in the first place?
the way
What
that
does she see in him?
the way that I would wish it would have been framed was more like I the point is right that he gives up his relationships, all of his relationships, for the sake
Yeah.
of his
Yeah,
career.
Everything.
So it would have been more quote unquote compelling or whatever if there was like intense chemistry or a connection there, right? Like um maybe the point is that he's not supposed to build them anyway, but still, it's like imagine if it was she went to a concert initially and saw that he was like and fell in love immediately or whatever, and like the
Mm.
little
yeah,
montage of them together, in a sense similar to La La Land. I don't want to spoil that movie, but in a
Mm.
like careers affecting relationships and a bit more fleshed out for that would have been
Okay.
nice. But it just again, I think we're we're both like reaching bottom of the barrel stuff, right? Like it
Yeah.
really, neither of those like comments are like affect the message or the themes or the performances of the rest of the movie.
We're
So
scraping.
yeah, so do we want to talk about the performances? Like, let's talk about the actors first, actually. No, then we can talk
Yeah, of
about their
course.
performances. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, so we've got two main characters, J.K. Simmons as, what's his name, Fletcher.
Charlie Fletcher.
Yes, and then we've got someone.
Miles Teller.
Yes, Miles Teller as
Andrew Neiman.
Andrew Neiman.
Neiman.
Nice.
Yeah.
At its core, this movie is about these two characters, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
does someone want to talk about one of the characters, and the other one of you can talk about the other, or one of you can talk about both, or what do you think? Like, who? I mean, obviously, I think J.K. Simmons's performance was outstanding. Not to take away from
Yeah.
Teller's, but I mean, it was. I think Ben said it right. Like there's a reason he won the Oscar. Like
Yeah.
he had been in so much stuff, but this was like a defining role.
Mm.
Yeah. Dylan, please tell us.
Uh,
Tell us something we don't know.
We know all, Ben. We know all.
oh shit. I'm gonna take what I think is the easier option and talk about Miles Teller.
Yeah, that's great.
And I'll leave you with.
No,
J.K.
I mean
Simmons.
you're a musician, right?
guess.
You're a violinist.
Played violin for about 10 years.
So-
I was in an orchestra as well, and I mean, but both of the actors actually come from a musical background as well, right? Of
I
some
didn't know
kind.
J.K. Simmons came from
Yes, they
musical.
do.
What was J.K. Simmons in?
Well,
what does he do, sorry?
He has a music degree, essentially.
Oh.
if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, like a full
Yeah.
degree, but he just didn't go down that route.
you would not believe
in the end.
that.
University of
No.
Montana, Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Music.
Bachelor of
He
Music.
did like composing and conducting and
Now he
some
hates
other
Spider-Man.
yeah. Now he wants pictures of Spider-Man.
Yeah, sorry, keep going about Miles Teller. I was just trying to give you some context.
Yeah, and then Miles Teller has actually played drums.
Yes.
Which helps a lot in a movie
It
where
w-
it's all about.
It was one of the casting
Well.
decisions, actually, because this was originally a short film, right? And they had
Yes.
they had someone else playing the main character, but
Mm-hmm.
they ultimately went with Miles Teller because one of the reasons being that he could play some drums. It was
Yeah, like properly.
yeah.
Which is very important, I think, for demonstrating that kind of physical acting. You know, it'd be hard to do that if you can't sell it properly. And I think he does a very good job of showing someone who is truly giving it his all to the point where he's bleeding and broken, but still feels that he has to give even more of himself to become one of the greats.
And like in a car
And
crash.
that kind of yeah. And I think the way he his characterization is really good with like his a reaction to J.K. Simmons as not Teller. Fuck.
Yeah,
What's his
I mean,
name?
I think
Fletcher.
I think like 8 years ago, he was definitely 9 years ago. I did math. He definitely had this like, just physically, he was very like very much of a looks very much softer, you know. I don't know how else to say it. It just felt
No, I
like
know
he
what you
was
mean.
the kind
He's
of
kind of jacked now.
yeah, he's Jack now, but
Yeah.
at the
You
time
see him in Top Gun.
Yeah.
What
In
the?
Top Gun, yeah.
What happened?
Jeez. I didn't even like connect the two in my
Training.
head, but it makes sense now.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Good for him. A lot of male actors tend to do that. The glow up is real in Hollywood for some reason. It's like
What could possibly cause them to get into shape so quickly?
I
and
wonder what.
effectively?
Yeah, no, but
Crazy.
what I'm saying is that like
I
he comes
suspect it's
off.
white rice, chicken breast, and broccoli.
Yeah, he comes off
Yeah.
initially
Just
as this like very very clearly like passionate, but like he hasn't felt any resistance, right? Like very
mm,
almost naive at the beginning.
Very innocent.
yeah.
Yeah, innocent. He wants to achieve things. He seems to work hard. Playing music. Like the very opening scene, you establish this character from the very beginning as like he is a drummer, right? That's his
Yeah.
identity. He is an aspiring or a good drummer, right? Like to a layman, the first performance is like, damn, this is pretty good. So it's
Yeah.
it's from the beginning he comes off as he wants to achieve things. He's new little budding bird in the world, and we see what
Yeah.
happens slowly, not so slowly
Yeah.
Yeah.
actually,
As he gets corrupted
corrupted
in a
by
way.
the other titular character, um,
Mm.
J.K.
Mm,
Simmons's Terrence Fletcher.
titular character.
Ben, you got anything to say
Terrence
about
Fletcher.
about that?
Terrence Fletcher? Absolutely. I mean, we were just talking about the opening scene there,
Mm,
where you see Miles in a dark room, or rather,
Mm.
you see Andrew in a dark room at a drum set, playing his heart out. And I think it's like in the school that they're in, the music school, the Schaefer
yes,
Conservatory,
exactly.
which
Yep.
I hear is essentially a one-to-one comparison of is it pronounced Juilliard, the
Iliad,
famous
I
music
think.
school in
Oh,
New York?
yeah.
Yeah. So he's there, but then he doesn't play in Fletcher's band, which is like the top band. They're like a competitive band, by the way. I'm
Mm.
no
Yes.
music person, but as I understand, they compete, they get scored, which is part of why they're so competitive.
Mm.
Anyways, so he's playing, and then J.K. Simmons, Fletcher rather, just walks um, in a really intimidating manner. And
Yeah.
then like just one big thing I noticed on rewatch is how he's basically emotionally manipulating people
Mm,
in every scene.
yes.
It is
Mm.
kind of shocking
And he uses
because when
different
he
techniques.
first different techniques, he changes it up. He's clearly well versed. And when you watch the movie the first time, you're just like, oh, haha, that's a funny line. Oh, is he rushing or is he dragging? Oh, he slapped him. When you rewatch, like he's making
It's
sexist comments, he's
calculated,
making homophobic comments, he's
Oh,
making jokes
yeah.
about people's weight.
but
He is such a nasty prick.
Yeah.
yeah, he's
You
he's
know?
a he's a sociopath. Like that's how I would describe him. Like,
Seriously.
but it's
Mm.
it's not he's not angry in this for like the sake of it, right? He's not deranged. It's very
Yeah,
very clearly
yeah,
targeted. It's very clearly forcing humiliation and triggering
absolutely.
every person in the room on purpose, right?
Yeah, yeah,
He generates this atmosphere and aura, and this is, I mean, it just show like the performance itself, just like every like word that comes out, and the volume, the everything about it, it all builds up correctly for each scene. So yeah.
yeah. Well, he creates like a ruthlessly competitive environment, basically.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, in that first scene in particular, so he walks into the room. It's a really dark room, and then there's just a few overhead lights, and sort of walks into the light. Then you see his big old shiny head, and then because he has like um, he has a pretty wrinkled face, and then the overhead lighting casts shadows onto his face from the wrinkles.
Mm.
And you're like, oh
Mm.
my god, this guy looks like a bloody
the
supervillain.
the wrinkles are amazing because like
I think
every
I
every
think
time he makes an expression you can see it so clearly.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I know I joked about bald heads, but like like nothing is covered, right? You see
yeah,
like even like, oh, I was gonna say something about final scene, but yeah, every time he like he doesn't smile, every time he like frowns, it's so obvious,
yeah,
it's so clear to the audience. Yeah.
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 That's very expressive. Yeah.
Terrence Fletcher is my second favorite villain with a bald head and wrinkled face behind Thanos.
I love that you make that comparison, right? Actually, I think it's as much as one wants to, not yeah, as much as one wants to kill half the universe, and somehow we manage. By the way, somehow we manage to talk about Marvel like every episode. I'm just saying,
Oh, yeah. Just
like
slip that
every
in.
is always we always talk about Marvel. We always talk about Marvel. Um,
Hmm.
Anyway, I love that you
Kids
make that
these days, am I
yeah,
right?
kids. I love you make that comparison because I think it slightly transitions us onto themes and like character choices, but is it is he in his mind, right, in his view of what he wants to achieve, like try to nurture this perfect student or try to get the most out of his students, right? Is he really doing anything wrong? Is he, at for the
From
sake
his
of
point of view.
the universe, right? Killing a few people, getting some stones, like to him it's just the means justifies the end justifies the means, like for both of these characters. It's a really,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how many people get hurt, how many people, bleed and suffer emotional damage. He has to get that result no matter what.
Mhm.
Can you imagine if you gave Terrence Fletcher an Infinity Gauntlet?
The
He
world,
would
Create a whole
Trump
universe of
Thanos.
perfect jazz musicians.
everyone is a Charlie Parker, everyone.
Oh my god.
But then if
Technology
everyone was
is
a
what I
Charlie
want
Parker,
it
there
to
are no
be.
Charlie Parkers. Ooh.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point that in his mind he's doing the right thing. In his mind he's doing the right thing, and there's a notable line after he gets sacked, basically,
Oh, you're gonna say it?
at
The
Schaefer.
line? The line?
Yeah, the line. I'll try and get it right. I think it's
It's literally quoted for you on the sheet, sorry.
yeah. Um, just one moment. Anyways, yeah. So after he gets sacked basically from Schaefer, he's having a nice relaxing meetup with Andrew. They're sort of settling their differences, and he's having a bit of a heart to heart, trying to explain why he is how he is. And then he's like, "There are no two words in the English language more harmful than good job," which really summarizes his character. He's he's the type of person, right? Most people, they start at they look at what's the result they want to achieve. How do we get there? He basically just looks at, this is the end result. Doesn't matter how we get there.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
need to get there.
At all
So
costs.
it's
there's no
crazy.
point feeling sorry for yourself. There's no point thinking you've done a good job just to satisfy your ego. You either get there and you achieve it, or you don't. So
I mean,
that's essentially what his character is about.
I mean that
Mm.
scene though. I know that you're saying they're having like a gentle conversation or whatever, but
Yeah,
even to that point in the movie, after everything that happened, that scene is still entirely manipulation.
of
Like
course.
Oh yeah.
he
Of
is,
course.
Oh yeah.
he pretends that he doesn't know that he's the reason he got that Miles Teller's character is the reason that he got fired. He's like, oh, he doesn't
Yeah.
know, blah blah blah, and then he's like weaving in this, oh, I just want to achieve the best, this story, these anecdotes, these quotes, like he's just saying all of
Yeah.
this stuff, and he's trying to like soften him up, and then just to
Absolutely.
lure him back in, because I
Yeah.
think at that point I think a part of him wanted to do it out of a revenge. I think that's very
For sure.
clear, right? But I
Oh yeah. He
think
set him up to fail.
he said, I know, but I think he still saw potential at that point for
Well,
he
it
needed
begs
to
the
keep
question.
breaking him. He still saw
Yeah.
another avenue. He already, the thing is, I think what he saw was that he already broke him physically, and what he needed was one more last public humiliation to just push him just a little bit more to get that the pinnacle, the ultimate performance out of him.
Yeah.
And I think that's just like, that's beautiful, right? Like maybe this is not reality, but it's just amazing how if you see it from a lens of that he's calculative. It's not just that he's, he wants him to feel bad for him, whatever. It's he knows that he needs to get a little bit more, and I love that.
Yeah. Well, it begs the question, what do you think his objective was in the final scene? Do you think that he knew Andrew would beat the odds and step up and reach his potential?
It
Or
it
was he purely motivated by revenge?
it didn't matter. He wins either way.
It's another test.
He wins either
Yeah.
That's a
way.
good point. Which
Yeah.
is
That
pretty
is true.
If
sinister.
Andrew walks
Yeah.
away and like is shunned and shamed in front of the entire audience, and remember he sets this up as like, this is the, these are all important people, you can make your career here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
if he walks away and loses his entire career, he loves it. He's fine. Move on to the next person. Move on to the next
Yeah.
talent that he can nurture. But if he doesn't, if everything he's done throughout the whole movie, if all of those individual scenes, moments, and insults finally gets what he wants, then he wins as well.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
and his method
Yep.
is justified then.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like to himself, he's
yeah.
vindicated.
It's crazy.
I'll tell you guys
Yeah.
something I noticed on rewatch, which really
Mm.
kind of freaked me out. So I'd completely forgotten that this happened. So obviously in hindsight, right, you realize that Fletcher kind of preys on, he's a bit of a predator, right? He kind
Mm.
of preys on these
Mm.
students, picks out the weakling who has potential, bullies them, molds them, and hopes that they reach the standards that he sets.
Mm.
And there's a scene right before the first performance where they all rock up to the venue, and
Yeah.
Fletcher's in like one of the back halls talking to someone who looks like a sort of family friend. And this person has a daughter who I think is 5 years old. And he sort of speaks to dad. He's like, "Oh, hey, buddy, how are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, that's my little Madeline, or whatever her name is." And he's like, "Oh, you were only this tall last time I saw you." So, whatever, being nice.
So
And then
the
he says to the kid, well, he's saying, he's just pointing out how the
yeah
kid was,
younger,
kid's grown.
yeah, grow up, yeah.
And then he says, "Have you started playing an instrument yet?" It's like, "Oh." And the dad's like, "Yeah, she started piano last month." He's like, great. Well, when you grow up, you can come play in my band." And on rewatch, I was like, "Oh my God, is he preparing this kid who is like 5 years old to be emotionally and physically destroyed by him at a later date to achieve his goal of
Mm,
having,
yeah,
a
maybe,
great
yeah,
musician like Charlie Parker?"
maybe,
I mean, based on everything else you see in the movie, evidently the answer seems to be
Mm.
yeah.
yes,
And then
Mm.
which is really
and
scary.
even if he's like not right, like it speaks to his like demeanor outside of the outside of the I don't want to say classroom, the music room, right? He
Yeah.
comes he to the public. He's a renowned musician, like music conductor. To the
Yeah.
he's the top. He's established as the top teacher at the school immediately.
Yeah.
He likes to
Yeah.
he's friendly with kids. He's
Yeah.
nice. He makes small talk. And like for me, the scene that I remember this on first watch. This wasn't even a rewatch. This was what got me almost immediately. I like it clicked. It was when
Yeah.
he's outside. I don't remember when, but talking to Teller, and he's just like making small conversation with Teller. Like how are you?
Yeah.
Mm.
And then he goes, "Are your parents musicians?" And
Yeah.
he's like gathering information, and then at one point Teller reveals to him that his mom left. His mom, like
Yeah.
Yes.
he only has his
Nice.
dad. And then later
Yeah.
in the scenes when he's ridiculing him, he just directly says, like, uses the insult. It's like, that's why your mother left,
Mm.
and it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's so direct, right? It's not. It's like the
Mhm.
Yeah.
classic. What is it? The Chekhov's gun, right? It's like it's the fast, like an immediate Chekhov's gun that just like hurts so
Yeah.
much more. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, it happens in like the next scene
Yeah,
when
the next scene, exactly. That's what I'm
Andrew
saying.
plays
So almost
the first
immediate. So
time.
you
Yeah.
remember it,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
sometimes directors love to like drop little hints and then come back to it later. It's
Yeah.
like here I'm setting you up to use this later, but he uses it immediately, and
Yeah.
for me that speed is what makes it more memorable.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because in that scene as well, he's kind of like softening him up. He's like, "Oh, just listen to some of the greats, just have an idea
Yeah,
of what you should be
Exactly.
aiming for." And then
Yeah.
Andrew goes into the next rehearsal session. He's like happy, he's smiling. He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be able to do this," and
mm,
then just
Yeah.
gets absolutely destroyed, just mentally broken by
Yeah.
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 damn.
But yeah, it's scary all the different ways that he just contorts reality to his will. It's like
Mm.
Thanos with the reality stone.
No, no,
Just like
no, bad, no,
I
not that easy.
saw it
No,
coming.
no
sorry.
bad,
I
no
saw
bad.
it
Sorry.
coming.
Sorry. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Like for example, the bit where I think so it's the first practice that Andrew does with Fletcher's band,
Yeah.
right? And he's like, "Oh, well, someone's out of tune." And he goes
Oh
through
yeah, that's
and
I
checks
love that scene.
everyone's music. And then I think it's the trombone player
Yes, yes, it's a
um
trombone.
Mm.
who he claims is out of tune. He asks him, "Well, are you out of tune?" And the trombone player's like, "I don't know." He kicks him out, and then he's like, "For the record, guys, he wasn't out of tune, but he didn't know that, and that's bad enough." I mean, the fact that
Yeah.
he does that and then basically no one bats an eye is crazy. And I'll tell you one more scene that also kind of freaked me out. So when Andrew gets into the car crash on the way to the rehearsal, right? He's
Mm,
clearly just been in a terrible accident. You
Mm.
know, he's looking disheveled. He's got blood on his face,
yeah.
bruises, and he stumbles into the building, stumbles onto stage, right? Sits at the drum kit. No one says anything. And then Fletcher basically looks at him for a sec, is like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then basically thinks, well, the show must go on. And
Yeah.
then just cues them in and everyone starts playing. No one says anything
They
because
can't.
I presume,
He's
well,
authority.
exactly.
He is the
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
king.
crazy.
He is in a position of power and abusing it. And
And
Yeah.
if you
because
say anything, you're out. And all these people want to be artists, and they've
Yeah.
seen what happens if they rebel, if they say anything.
Yeah. And then,
Uh,
to be fair, actually, here's just another slight criticism. Um, Not even the judges say anything, and there seems to be a depiction of the music and jazz world as similarly cutthroat to Fletcher.
mm,
And I'm not at all involved in that world. I
we
don't know
don't
what
know.
it's
Yeah.
really like, but I suspect that's a little bit
No, of
exaggerated. Like,
course, but
having someone
I
like Fletcher seems somewhat realistic, but having everyone else be like that is
I
maybe a
think
tad
I think
unrealistic.
I feel like
But
that's a
it serves the
limitation
movie
of.
well overall.
I think that's a limitation of the film, though. I think that's a limitation of what
Yeah,
they're like. You can only be accurate to reality to so much, right? You can't.
yeah,
I think they could have, right? But it's a bit. You could have. I get what you're saying, but I don't think
yeah.
they could. I mean, so Fletcher's like I want to say techniques, like
Hmm.
things are
yeah.
just like they're very well documented, like abusive relationship and manipulation techniques. You know, there's a lot
Mm,
of like
Yeah.
names and buzzwords like love bombing and like using like
Insane
use
amounts of
and
gaslighting.
yeah,
Oh my God.
gaslighting,
oh,
uh
yeah.
crazy making. That's a thing. It's called crazy making, where it's similar to
Oh, what's
gaslighting,
that?
but you essentially make everyone like it was what you described. You make them doubt, and you doubt their
Mm,
sanity
Yeah.
almost. What they know is real is not what is real. What is real is what you say is real, no matter what.
okay.
So and you do that
Reality is
through
whatever I want.
you you do it through this like erosion of the psyche. It's not
Of course.
he doesn't get these people in and like day one he's like, okay, oh, you're trash, get out. It's one person at a time. It's one scene at a time. It's a slow,
Yeah.
Bit
meticulous
by
like
bit,
build up. Yeah, bit by bit. Anyway,
chipping
Yeah.
away. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. But yeah, Dylan, I
I
want
mean,
to hear your thoughts about generally like how his ideology, if you think it somewhat, if the ends somewhat justify the means, like to what extent do you think that that's okay?
Sorry, you said to what extent, and I got PTSD. But yeah, yeah. Sorry. Yeah,
Oh, what essays?
huh? Yeah, essays. Yeah,
What, like to
I
essays
said,
at
T-
school?
T- TOK essays, bro. TOK
Hey,
essays.
hey, we'll take
oh,
we'll take
top.
an essay
Oh,
submission.
TOK
That's all
essay
right.
submission
Okay,
right now, Dylan.
okay. Okay,
Tell us.
4K words. Easy.
We need Peel paragraphs,
No,
point,
please,
evidence,
please.
explain, and link.
Oh god.
Okay, point.
No.
Point.
Any reasonable human is going to be burnt up and completely destroyed by this process. Evidence is
1 mark.
uh, the previous student who committed suicide after going through this
Mm,
whole process with Fletcher,
Mm.
and he
2 marks.
frames it as uh, in that conversation when he's being all like buddy buddy. What does he say? It's he was
About
trying
like
to
how he
guide
died.
that person to like greatness. Yeah, what he doesn't say they committed suicide, right? They
Yeah, he lies. He says,
yeah,
"Oh, I found out that Alex died in a car crash yesterday,"
a
and then
car
like weeps
yeah,
and stuff.
Yeah.
yeah. But
And
no,
he
he
actually hung
knows
himself in his
full well.
apartment.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because he couldn't live up to those standards.
Yeah.
Um, what's the next E? I don't know. Anyway, we can
Explain, which I think you just did. 3 marks.
okay.
Guys,
Link.
Link.
you don't have an essay question to link to, bro.
Yeah.
um.
I think that's top marks, Dylan. Very nicely done.
Dylan,
Oh,
Dylan,
thank you,
there's
thank you.
here's your A.
Could I borrow
Perfect.
some essay writing skills sometime, please?
He's kind of like a drill instructor. Right? That's kind of what I was reminded of.
mm,
He's in this
Yeah.
band of all men. Uh, he's breaking them down so that he can rebuild
so,
them into
Yeah.
the
but
perfect jazz musician machines.
Yeah.
And if they don't match up to that, then that's not acceptable to him.
Yeah.
but okay, so
Well,
I think what's interesting, well, not interesting, but what is I think the bigger question is like, or at least Ben asked this, but is what point is too much? Because there's like,
yeah.
if you have a teachers are important components of people's like lives, right? Everyone's had some
Mm.
form of teacher, whether it's a drill instructor or whatever, or music teacher or whoever, or your actual just primary school teachers. And it's like,
Mm,
should you, if a teacher is harsh, right? If you who's just like a little bit, maybe a little bit more strict with their
Tough love.
words, tough love, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
How much tough love is too much? Of
Yeah.
course, Fletcher is the like a representation of the extreme of that, but
Mm.
let's say someone who is half as bad as Fletcher, are
Hmm.
they still wrong in doing it? Or
Yeah.
like how do you justify that hitting someone is
Yeah.
acceptable? Or
I,
maybe even just emotional abuse, right? Like a little bit. Like
Yeah.
what if someone's just like just insulting you one day, but they don't do it again? Or I
mm,
don't know. It's just all really like this gray area of like you should be
Yep.
encouraging your students, but you should also give them criticism. That makes sense. But
yeah,
to
yeah.
define what is criticism, what is just personal attacks, like I think there are some gray lines there, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I I think it's when you stop caring about what happens to the person at the end,
Mm,
because
Yep.
Fletcher doesn't care.
Yep.
If the process leads someone to their death, then they weren't good enough. Move on to the next
mm.
one. He doesn't care about the person.
Yeah.
He cares just about the result.
But
And I
so,
guess that's when it
but
becomes
but
too much.
I know he doesn't care. But is it his responsibility if a student makes a bad choice? Okay. This is maybe too
Oh no.
social, but I
Oh
just
no.
I want to hear this. Maybe I'll be cut or whatever. But it's like if
Uh-huh.
your actions were, let's say, less aggressive, a little bit still rude, still mean, still a little bit insulting, and it still inevitably led to someone's, in this case, death, or maybe someone to lose their job, or someone to be
Mhm.
affected
Mm.
emotionally, or have to go through therapy or whatever. What, how, and you, of course, but to what extent are you responsible for that? Because
Mhm.
I, of course, in this, it's framed very much that Fletcher is responsible, but there
Yep.
are other circumstances to people's lives. It's never as clear cut as this person is mean to me, therefore I want to kill myself. That is, like, it's very rarely like that, right? I presume. I
Mhm.
wouldn't know, but it's I don't. It's interesting because as much as Fletcher is the villain, he is our Thanos. Um, I think that is a he is just meant to be this like symbol of a older style of teaching, right? Like because our director was it's based on some real experiences, right? Like the director was a musician
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Damon
Yeah.
Chazelle played drums in high school, so he was
Yeah.
also part
Yeah.
of some sort of competitive band. And I think
Mm.
he had a teacher who had a lot of similarities to Fletcher.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
the
we take
the
from
the way
reality.
that
Yeah.
the way he wrote Fletcher is highly inspired by his own real
Yeah.
life experience. Hopefully not to that
Yeah.
same
Mm.
extent, but certainly to some
Yeah.
extent.
No, of course to some
Yeah,
extent.
because I mean, I've had a similar experience with the
Hmm.
obviously not fully, but the when someone's out of tune.
Mm.
One
Oh,
time, my conductor went through each section of the
oh
orchestra
God.
Yeah.
and started narrowing it down. So it got to the second violins, which was what I was in. He
Oh,
started
that's
narrowing it
scary.
down desk by desk, so two people by two people. He was
No.
working his way down the row, and it was
But
like, who's out
was that
of tune?
intentionally to out someone or just because they wanted to tune?
It's because it was quite important for that section that
Yeah,
everyone
so
was in tune.
but that's a
Were you out of tune?
reasonable like that's a reasonable reason. That is
Yeah, yeah,
reasonable.
yeah. Yeah, it's not like, oh, get out.
Yeah.
once he found the
Yeah.
desk. It wasn't me, thankfully.
Oh,
Um,
Well, you're telling the
but
story, so we only see
did a chair
yeah,
get
whatever.
thrown at your head?
yeah, it actually missed the person who it was meant to hit, and it got me
Oh,
instead. You
damn it.
Yeah.
know.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, tough luck.
No, yeah. But when they did get to that person, the conductor just suggested like, okay, this is how you can, change it, improve this, like go away and focus on this bit, and then it's okay. Don't worry. And it
Yeah.
wasn't the chair.
It's like a sane
And
version of
it's
what happened
stressful.
in the movie.
Yeah. It's still stressful. It's so
Yeah.
stressful.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the
Yeah.
film did a really good job of capturing that feeling for
Mm.
people who've maybe not had that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just to sort of loop back to the question, I think fundamentally the difference between Fletcher and any other person who's in this situation is he knows exactly how this
Mm.
could potentially end
Mm.
and still chooses to act the way that he does. So it makes him pretty irredeemable, in my personal opinion. If Andrew Neiman was the first student that this happened to, then he can maybe learn from it.
Yeah.
But Andrew
Mm.
is
Not
certainly not the first, maybe not even the second, who knows?
not the
Um,
last.
Probably not the last. So I think he's quite aware of where it could lead him. And he's so twisted by his goals and his ambition that he doesn't think about the other things anymore. And it would be interesting to get into his psyche and look at if he even realizes the extent to which he's manipulating people, or if he's just so deep into it that he doesn't anymore. But
Mm.
regardless, I think the fact that he has had that experience before, um, makes it pretty difficult to redeem him as a villain.
Mm.
So, what do you think the like? What's the message? What's the big themes of this movie? Then, right? We've
Yeah,
talked extensively about how these characters are,
yeah,
their their intentions, their motivations, but like
yeah,
why has it been composed this way? What do you think?
yeah. Well, I mean, certainly part of what makes it so compelling is that there is no good answer, or rather, there is no single answer to the central question that the movie asks,
Which is
right? So let's say you could summarize the question of the movie as, um, let's say you could summarize the question of the movie as what what should you be willing to do to achieve your goals? And on the one hand, you see the potentially disastrous consequences of doing whatever it takes. And on the other hand, you see the sense of achievement, the sense of fulfillment that Andrew gets, um, and the acclaim that you get from doing whatever it takes.
so.
So really that
Just to
yeah,
briefly interject before you continue, you say this, and it's really interesting because like Miles Teller has said himself, so the actor has said that the look that his father gives at the end of the movie, there's one
yeah,
little snippet during the final
Mm.
performance, which we'll talk about in a bit,
yep,
where he describes it as not one of finally understanding his son's passion, but
mm,
instead one of horror witnessing the extent of the son's obsession. And I don't that
Yeah.
just sounded really good, but it also it makes so much sense
true,
with this. It's no longer passion. The young boy in the white shirt at the beginning of the movie has now become obsessed, has now
Yeah.
kind
yeah,
of achieved what he wanted at
yeah,
the s- the at the cost of his sanity almost.
yeah.
Mm.
Maybe if he shaved his head and got some wrinkles, he could also be Terrence
Yes.
Fletcher.
Yeah. I mean, that's what his methods will create, right? Another
Yeah,
person who's like, oh, it worked on me,
Yep.
yep,
therefore we should be spreading
It
this.
worked.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
results based analysis, boys. Movie is
Yeah.
results based.
They work backwards from the result.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But
yeah, done. Yeah.
a slight other perspective, right? When we consider the extent to which this is acceptable, right? The extent to which this level of dedication to your goals is acceptable. I think everyone would agree for the average person that level of commitment isn't sustainable,
Yeah, yeah.
right? It's not
Mm.
sustainable to throw away all the parts of your life just to achieve one particular goal. Like you will also fall apart. But, I think most people would also agree. There are some people who are built a little bit differently, right? People like Andrew, and although he is getting manipulated into acting a certain way, you could
Mm.
argue that that is sort of his core belief
Mm,
and want anyways. And perhaps, if he is okay with that, if Fletcher is okay with that,
yes.
and they're both willing to go through all these horrific circumstances for him to achieve
But
what he wants, is that okay? So
yeah,
maybe it's not okay for everyone. Is it okay
y-
for
yes,
a
but
few people?
this is what I was saying about responsibility, right? I
Yep.
mean, I think in this case it's not. And very clearly not because he's still a kid, right? I don't know what his exact age is in the movie, but I think the framing of this movie is very much like you us adults or like people in power cannot be left to abuse children like this, right? He is
Yep.
essentially a child, someone who can be corrupted, can be manipulated. So yeah, and this is what I was saying about responsibility. Yes, maybe if an adult versus an adult and makes their own decisions and wants to do this and wants to obsess, sure, there's a point where outsiders can't change that. They want to achieve greatness, they want to put in the work, they want to bleed. Okay,
Mm.
it's like
Yeah.
you what's the line? No pain, no gain, right? Like you can't get what you want if you're not willing to lose something, willing to lose
Mm.
relationships, willing to lose like your girlfriend
Everything,
and everything else, yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
and physically, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
It's,
Shall we
it's
discuss the final scene?
it,
This is
Yeah.
one of the best closing scenes to a movie that I will ever see, to be quite honest.
yeah. Dylan,
That's just a banger. It's a
banger,
banger,
Man,
isn't it?
banger. Wow, our final scene was not such a banger.
yeah, no,
Whoa.
so this is definitely one of the best final scenes that I've ever seen. And um it's essentially a culmination of everything that the movie is about,
mm,
right? So you see Neiman get humiliated in front of everyone, but he picks himself back up and perseveres as you see him do figuratively and literally all
Mm.
throughout the movie. And of course, it's maybe the most sinister bit of manipulation that Terrence Fletcher pulls off throughout the whole
mm.
movie as well.
Yeah.
Right? He literally
He wins.
like
He's
yeah, well, he
Thanos.
spends like however
As you were
yeah,
He
saying,
exactly.
he
He
Thanos
wins.
wins.
wins. He wins.
Thanos won. That
Yeah.
exactly. He basically gets the Infinity Gauntlet,
Yes.
right? Collects all of the Infinity Stones
And
and then
and
snaps it
creates
right in Andrew's face.
Mm.
yeah, kind of. I mean more like yeah, okay. Yeah. You're right, yeah.
Basically, reality is whatever he
So
wants it to be.
Yeah. He's
so
created what he wanted.
I,
Well, as you said, Henry, he wins either way.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Either Andrew gets destroyed and
So
he gets his revenge, or Andrew rises above it all and he gets his
what
Charlie Parker.
but the thing is for the audience, right? It's
Mm.
we spoke about how it is what's it, Fletcher's win. But
Yes.
as a watcher, it feels good, right? The villain won, but that's not what you're thinking about when you're watching the movie.
Yeah.
What you're
Exactly. And that's
seeing
part of
is
what makes it so
what yeah,
compelling.
you're seeing your protagonist win, right? You're seeing your protagonist
Exactly.
achieve
Exactly.
greatness, finally be
So,
happy, finally
Yes.
give the performance of his life. So this you're
Exactly.
getting a almost a joint vindication with your with Fletcher and yourself at the same time, but it's so oddly satisfying, even though in context and the journey you just
Uh-huh.
watched is so horrific,
Yeah.
right?
You just nailed
mm,
you nailed it right on the head.
It's
I
yeah.
mean,
yeah.
that's part of what makes it so incredible on rewatch and will always make it an incredible
Mm,
movie to watch for me,
Mm.
right? When you consider the greater circumstances, almost all of the scenes can be looked at in multiple ways. It can be looked at as,
Mm.
wow, Andrew is overcoming obstacles,
yes.
he's achieving his dreams, but it can also be looked at as, wow, this sinister supervillain is, destroying another young person who's destined to give up all of his life to
To
his
music.
career
Yeah.
and die at 35.
Yeah.
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 But dude, watching this final scene the
There's
first
so many
time
details.
was,
There's so many
I
details.
know, it's
You
incredible. I mean, one of the best parts, as we discussed about Miles Tellers's
Miles tell
performance.
us, yeah? Tell us. Just tell
Yeah,
us.
Tellers's.
No, just tell us. Miles tell us.
We officially apologize to Miles Teller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
One of
One
them
of
guys.
the
is
best parts about the performance that Miles Teller delivers, no offense to him, but like he has a sort of strange looking face. You guys know
oh
what I
my
mean?
god. You don't have
Mm,
Sort of
that.
strange looking face, right?
He's already
And
broken, man. He already went into a car
I'm just
accident.
hear me out. Hear
is
hear
it?
me out. Hear me out. Hear me
Hear
out.
me
Okay.
out. Hear me
He
out.
has
Okay.
a bit he has a bit of a strange looking face, and I have to say, because of that, like he always kind of looks a little bit uncomfortable
Yeah.
to me, just
He's like
with
in
his
pain.
general.
Pain.
Yeah, no,
Anger.
seriously, with his general facial
Yeah.
expression. And then when he is pounding these drums, intensely concentrated, 7 minutes into this ridiculous drum solo, arms
Yeah.
burning, sweat dripping, it just looks really convincing. And as we discussed, like he has the physicality to play the role, he displays the intensity of the emotions.
Mm.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, it all comes down to, he has this incredible drum solo, he steals the stage, and it all comes down to the shot of
Yeah.
him
The final
and
shot.
Andrew's face and
The zoom
Terrence
in. Yeah.
Fletcher's face.
The
Exactly. So you
Yeah.
see
The smile.
and
exactly.
it.
You see it zoom in on, I believe it's Fletcher's face
Yes.
first. He
Mm.
smiles, and you can't see his
No.
whole face. You
No,
see
but that's
mainly his
no,
eyes.
but this is what we said about how he is perfect for this role because the
Yeah.
way that they've cut it,
Yeah.
because of the wrinkles of his face, you very clearly see it's a smile. It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
well done. Like it's cut
Yeah.
because oh, it almost feels like only he could have done it, right? Like of course other people can
Yeah.
do it, but it's just the smile, and it's the first smile. It's the first smile. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then it cuts back to Andrew, who smiles back. And as you said, Henry, when you initially watch it, you feel like, oh my gosh, he's finally won the approval
Yeah.
of his mentor. This is fantastic. And
Mm.
of course, we know it's more complicated than that.
Yeah.
But it cuts to Andrew, he smiles, and then he goes absolutely ham on the drums.
Final.
Then
Yeah.
the video cuts, and then the song Caravan just keeps playing
Yeah.
again.
Oh, Caravan,
Mm.
such
Dude,
a good song.
I was like actually I was like, you know, sort of like putting my hand in my
Yeah, yeah,
face in my
we're
hands
so
rewatching it.
happy.
Yeah.
We're so happy.
So
We
Yeah.
just
good.
celebrated an abusive relationship work
Yeah.
out.
It feels dirty to do
It's
it,
but
but
you don't feel dirty in the moment. You feel
no.
dirty after you think about it.
Yeah. It's
It's
like,
so
oh,
crazy. This is what
yeah.
makes an amazing film like this. It's like you
Yeah.
get both feelings. You get and even on the rewatches, right? Now that you know that this is a very sad story, sad quote unquote, it's
Yeah.
like very like deep story, you're still vindicated. You still feel that thrill. Like I just rewatched the last like 10 minutes and it's still so
Oh my god.
hype. It's hype, boys. It's so
Yeah.
good, but
It is. It is
it
so
doesn't make any sense why it's still so good.
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. And I think, when you think about it, it's a little bit of um when you think about it, it's a little bit of a comparison to entertainment as a whole,
Mm.
where
Mm.
people really only look at
No, oh,
the
wow.
feelings that they get from something,
Like the result.
the very surface level outcome or
Yeah.
result. And we don't really know about the process that goes behind a lot of people who achieve
Mm.
excellence, whether that's athletes or
Mhm.
entertainers. And certainly many of them have, similarly difficult or maybe even sinister circumstances. But that doesn't really matter to someone who isn't aware of them and doesn't understand it. And
Yeah.
it maybe makes you sympathize a little bit more with Andrew because he's in a position where he's, a musician and the people listening don't know or care about what he goes through, and he knows that. So he pushes that to the back of his mind as well and pushes through
Mm.
the circumstances that he encounters. But, maybe it's something that people should consider when they, look at what media or entertainment they consume.
Yeah.
Perhaps consider what it is that the people who are behind
Yes.
um, your consumption, what do they go through? what what things do you need to be
Difficulties,
considerate
yeah,
of as a consumer? What difficulties?
yeah,
It's a good thing to think about.
yeah, and
Mm.
also what who is this person, right? A lot of these
Yeah.
people are not good people. They are
Well, I mean, it's
like
terrible. You see
but
people in Hollywood, all the time just dying young from whatever horrific
Yeah.
there's
circumstances, and you're
dying,
just like, "Oh my God, I had no idea."
but there's also the other side where you see a lot of people who are imprisoned young, not young, but
Yeah.
imprisoned, like for
Yeah.
crimes because
Mm.
it's this is like a sickness all throughout our society where it's like these people with power, right? Fletchers.
Yeah.
These people who have power, who are given the ability to do what they want, will abuse it. Will,
Yep.
just find ways
Mm.
to. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, this the strange thing is, right? We've spoken, not strange, but the great thing is that we've spoken at length about this film for like almost an hour, and
Yeah.
there's still like pages and pages of stuff that we could talk about, right?
Oh, the
Oh,
soundtrack.
Yes,
Oh my
we can talk about that now if we want, but the soundtrack, there's
Did you guys listen to it after the movie came out?
yeah,
It's
that
just
was
me.
like a Caravan and like
Mm.
Whiplash, and the other one was
Caravan, Whiplash,
Yeah.
Overture.
yeah,
Oh
that was
my.
all I
Yeah.
was listening to for like months, man. Cause
That
Yeah.
that yeah, for years after that,
oh,
I
I
would
tried
listen to it. It
playing
was
it as well. I was playing piano at the time, so it was like,
Really.
yeah, I tried playing Caravan on piano. I think I had
good
it for
luck.
a while,
Mm.
but then I like stopped. It didn't sound too good without the rest of the instruments. Actually,
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was okay, but it didn't have like the same level.
Uh-huh.
Like I think that's
Yeah.
just with jazz. For me, jazz is like such a multi-instrument music.
Mm.
Um,
Dylan, can you
It's
play
impressive.
Caravan on
I
the
cannot.
violin, was it?
Yeah. No. Sadly not.
Can you
yeah.
play
Maybe
Four
I can
Seasons
try.
by Vivaldi? Just as a side note,
I I think I can. If
because I
at least
listen
if I
to it all the
practice, I'd be
time when
able
I
to.
study.
Okay. Yeah.
Banger
Yeah.
as well.
The,
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Winter.
the winter part of Four Seasons? I mean,
Yeah.
top-notch banger. Incredible.
Oh yeah. Bro, they must have been going crazy back then when it dropped.
For real. And
It's
Vivaldi comes on in the club.
like, whoa.
Uh,
so the
Yeah.
the other thing the other thing you can talk about in this movie, actually, there are two things. So there's one where it's like this film. It goes back to what I said about budget, right? It's you can tell, like you can very obviously tell there's not many props and not many scenes, right? It's all
Mm.
quite intimate, quite close up a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the film is spent like at a drum set. It doesn't matter what's around it. So
yeah.
you can you can talk more about that. And also I love what they did with color, because and I think
Oh yeah.
this is something that Damien Chazelle does a lot. I mean, La La Land, I could speak about like
Oh,
for like 10 hours about color in La La
hey,
Land.
we'll talk about it in the
Like
La La Land
yeah, yeah, but
episode.
like
Coming
color.
soon.
He loves to use color. And the
Yeah.
three main colors he loves to use in this movie, it's black,
Mm.
Mhm.
it's yellowish gold, like
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Like yellowish gold, orange light.
it's
Yeah.
green, and
Orangey.
it's green. That's the last one that
Yeah.
I didn't really pick up on initially, but when you rewatch it, these are like the three main colors, right? And black is always
Okay.
associated with black is your performances, your character suiting up, your and there's a lot of symbolism there as well and connotations with black for different reasons, but also
Mm.
the when they use green versus when they use yellow lighting, and then when it's
Hmm.
just kind of quote unquote normal, and it's
Mhm.
the sometimes they use both. Sometimes you get this greenish hue with an orange lighting, and it is beautiful. The color
Yeah.
grading is there's so many clips like that you can find online about how someone turns a normal scene into this orangey warm um color graded version. And it's
Yeah.
what's strange is that warm yellow orange, that's not a harsh color. This
Yeah. I
movie
think
is
it's funny.
mostly quite
Mm.
softly color graded, as opposed,
Yeah.
which contrasts like massively with the action that's happening and
Yeah.
the conversations
themes.
and the
You know,
themes. It's great. Yeah.
I think on that, initially the lighting was meant to obviously fit into the setting, right? It's probably an old music building. It makes sense that they've got that type of lighting. But I think as well, you're right. It maybe initially is a bit more warm and inviting. But I
Yes.
think as the scenes become more intense and have more conflict, I think the yellowish gold lighting almost feels kind of vibrant and fiery to me.
Yeah. Oh, I get
You
that. Yeah.
know, it casts a certain
Mm.
color on everyone's
S-
face. Like, for example, if Fletcher's face is kind of going red from
Yeah. Yeah.
screaming, and there's also kind of
Mm.
yellow light, it almost just glows with
Yeah.
anger.
Yeah. I get that.
So
Uh,
it
The transition of
the
meaning is quite
well,
interesting.
exactly, the
There's
meaning of the lighting, I think, changes
yeah,
as the movie
transforms it.
goes on.
And then but the thing is that's not that final scene. I kind of agree with the like fire and war, like more passionate color, but it
Mm,
also for me it was almost a little bit of like richness, like gold. That final scene.
mm,
This was
yeah.
your
mhm.
this is your trophy. Like
Mm.
it really
Actually,
felt really gold.
Okay,
It
yeah,
felt
yeah.
really
mm,
really like
I
exuberant,
can see that.
luxurious.
yeah,
This is your pièce de
moment.
résistance, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
what
just
you've been
quickly
trying. Yeah.
add, which I kind of just realized while looking at some images. So you know how this was originally a short movie?
Yes.
Mm.
In the short movie, the lighting is significantly different.
Yeah.
So I'm looking now at an image of Fletcher
Okay.
screaming at one of the musicians, veins bulging and muscles rippling and all that. And it's in pretty plain white light. And if you compare that to the shots of him screaming and getting angry with
Mm.
the yellow goldish lighting, it really makes a difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
It
think it
does.
backs up
It
what you're
does.
saying, Henry.
This is all
Yeah, true,
it's all
true.
chosen by like it's by choice, right? It's not just the
Well,
rule.
Yeah.
it's a
They
good way
have
that he
graded it.
adapted the film as it went
Yes,
on.
exactly.
Mm.
They've made
Mhm.
careful decisions, and that's great.
Yeah,
Like there's so many other choices and camera angles and movements, transitions, and compositions that they do
Yeah.
throughout. And yeah, but
yeah.
I think we covered most of. Do we have any closing thoughts, remarks? Um,
Is
for
it
the
just me that thinks Terrence Fletcher looks like a turtle?
you're
Turtle.
just insulting J.K. Simmons.
Like
Doesn't
a
he give
snapping
you
turtle.
well,
Yeah,
doesn't he give you some
guys,
slight Uguay vibes?
bro.
Like when he sticks his neck out a little bit?
Uruguay, you
Uh,
say? I wonder
Is it
what.
just me?
He's in the. He's in the
Yeah, he's
franchise, right?
Shifu, isn't he? Isn't he Shifu?
No,
Is he Uguay?
no. You're close.
Oh.
Well, you're close to Uruguay, but not Uruguay. He's in the
Oh,
third.
is he Tai Lung?
No, he's not
Oh no
Thailand.
no no! I know who he is.
No,
He's
you know who
Kai.
he is.
He's
Yeah, he's Kai.
Kai Bok.
Yes, you got
uh,
it. You got it.
No,
He's
but
Kai.
okay, look. Hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me
okay.
out.
Yeah.
If you
You
Google
can't
a
keep.
photo of Uguay,
Yeah.
if you Google a photo of Uguay and you look at his neck with some of them hanging
Okay.
hanging wrinkles and stuff, and you look at
I.
Terrence Fletcher, all I'm saying is that there's a little bit of similarity.
But like, I mean, Kung Fu
Yeah,
Panda.
visually.
Kung Fu Panda is the goat. It's so good. It's so good. Kung Fu Panda. The
We should
original.
talk about Kung Fu Panda
Oh,
at
it's so
some point.
good. I love Kung Fu Panda.
Can you imagine
Yeah,
Uguay saying
like
the
that.
things that Terrence Fletcher
No,
says? Boom,
not Uruguay, but
Shifu,
Shifu. Shifu could do it. Shifu kind of did it.
Shifu,
I mean, Shifu was
Shifu,
beating up his
your time.
students.
Yeah,
Shifu
What if
was.
he's like, Shifu, your time is not now. Because you can't play on my fucking time. You're redragging.
Wait, guys! I just realized. So Shifu is the teacher
Yes.
who created the ultimate student, but his fault.
Mm.
He learned from his mistake. His folly was creating a student who was too ambitious, and it caused him
Yeah.
to fail. And Uguay had to, not Uguay, Shifu had to grow in order to finally train a student correctly using
Yeah.
techniques that were appropriate for the student. It's the Whiplash
The link up.
Whiplash Kung Fu Panda multiverse.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, can we just quickly talk
Beautiful.
about the name Whiplash? Because
Yeah,
is that a
actually,
drumming
that'd be
term?
good.
Is it a drumming term?
Well, it's the name of the song.
Yeah,
Whiplash.
no, I
The
know.
Hangman
Okay,
song.
okay.
He's-
I know that. I know that. But
Mm.
but it's also not the final song. No, so the reason that I bring it up, right? It's the name of a very important song in the movie, which is fine. But it's also not the
Yeah.
final song, which is fine as well. But I'm just wondering if this name has more meaning, right? Why did they choose
I guess the car
Whiplash?
crash.
Yes, there's the car crash. But also I don't know. I like the connotation to the word whiplash is like it's really multifaceted, right? Because you can use it not just for injury, you can use it not just
Yeah.
for whips. You use it when
Yeah.
you experience a certain like environmental jerk as well. And
An environmental
yeah, no,
jerk?
seriously. No. The
Oh.
people have used whiplash like to experience whiplash physically, yes, but
Okay.
also like to experience to be, you know, whiplash. I can't. I'm like struggling. It's like you
Put into a new situation.
yeah, situationally used, but it's quite
Yeah.
it's quite an aggressive term. It's quite a powerful word. I don't know. I'm too deep. I'm like IB English, you know. IB English right now. It's like
Yeah.
colors, and words.
Analysis,
My
yeah.
brain. Right. No. We're really getting
Henry,
into that
can you
deep.
tell us anything about environmental jerking?
I use my left hand. Anyway, let's guys.
Final cut.
Yes, final cut.
Is that making it to final cut?
Yes. Henry
Yeah, I'm literally
aggressively
looking at
environmentally
emotional
jerking.
whiplash. Even the most calm and stable people have found their mental health being tested throughout the pandemic. We're all feeling the effects of constant changing news about the virus. Okay. Emotional whiplash is a term that describes unstable mood states. It is the feeling that in a flash we will be faced with more bad news. It seems that right when we adjust to this renewed hope, along came another
Yeah.
variant, another variant to bring us down. Woo!
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
deep.
So when he's like building up him before, like
Yeah.
when Fletcher is building up Newman before their rehearsal, and then fucking destroys him
Yes.
in it.
He just keeps
there we
doing
are
that.
as well.
And then he validates him by putting him on the
No.
main cast, you know, or he chooses
Yeah.
him, he makes him come, but then brings him back down.
Gives and
It's
takes
gives
away.
and take. It's a
What?
classic manipulative relationship.
Makes him what?
Yeah.
Huh? Makes him.
Nothing.
Oh,
Go on.
fucking hell, Ben. I hate you.
No,
hate you so much.
that's I
What? You what? You what? What defense do you have?
No, no comment.
No comment. Okay. Anyway, guys,
No.
I think in conclusion, we all love the film. We've all
Yeah,
seen
absolutely.
it a few times. We
Absolutely.
wish cinema was, you know, less about the big boys and more about the small boys.
We want more original, well-written
Sure.
scripts.
original.
like this.
Well, but you see, what I love so much is that most of the time, most of this podcast, most of all this discourse, it's just about the characters. You just have to make really good characters. Like the plot, right? Like the plot is musician plays music really hard, right? Like if I really, that's the very raw synopsis, but plays really hard, plays painfully music.
Thanos gets the Infinity
Yeah,
Gauntlet.
yeah.
Snaps his
But
fingers.
but the characters,
Bada bing, bada boom.
Thanos, and the characters, they feel almost real, but not real.
Big shiny bald head.
Yeah.
They are
When there's more to it than
The-
just
they're elements of reality, yet still very much fictional, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's a movie about a jazz drummer.
Yeah.
Like I cannot play any instruments. I know nothing about jazz,
Yes.
and this is one of the best movies I've ever watched.
Yeah.
You know, because the movie
yeah.
is about something more, and jazz is just the vessel by
And-
which the story is told.
and the characters are by which the visuals we see the story being conveyed. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, boys. Do we have any announcements? No. You can get us on our usual places. You know, we're now on Apple Podcasts. Is it Apple Podcasts?
yeah.
We're on Apple
I think
Podcasts.
so, yeah.
We're everywhere. You can, if
Yes.
you want to support us, you can on Buzzsprout. That'd be great. Or just liking and subscribe is amazing. We'll be releasing more content and
Rate us on Spotify, and if you're
Yeah.
listening on YouTube, you can find us on Spotify.
Yeah, leave your comment.
As I just gave away, we're on YouTube as
You,
well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Look there.
if you made it to the end of this video, which we know you haven't, but if you made it to this end of this video, we'd love if you left a comment about what
Yeah,
your
let us know what you
interpretation
thought.
of of the movie was, and if you even have suggestions for movies that we want to cover next.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah,